Well, thank you for staying with us. Members of the organized private sector over the weekend raised concerns about the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission looking at the issue of pricing. They said the FCCPC needs to focus more on consumer protection. This followed the FCCPC's recent one-month notice to retailers to crash prices of goods or face sanctions. Well, the members of the OPS had expressed this. Part of them were the Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association, and the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. They pointed out that the blame and solution for the escalating prices of goods and services in Nigerian markets were at the doorsteps of the federal government. Let's get to understand this. And I have one of the leaders of the organized private sector, yes, right here in the studio. He's the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Sadewale Smart Oyerinde. It's good to have you, DG. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
thanks for having us.
We are here again. And a lot of issues. Now, I want to start with this issue of pricing. Truth be told, we know that some manufacturers or some shop owners engage in price gouging to take advantage of consumers. And now the FCCPC has come up to say, no, this has to stop. This will be sold as this amount at this shop, and it's sold at another amount at this shop. How does this come to you before you now tell me the position of the private sector on this? Yes, it's true. Let's get here's the reality.
I think first you mentioned that the issue of price gouging, the issue of playing shenanigans with prices, it do exist, and the reality of a market economy is that the consumer have the option of buying. So, like the analogy that was used that caused this uproar, the what do you call it now? The
soap or something.
What the vice chairman of saw on the shelf.
It was to buy something. Yes.
Yeah, so the market has the option of buying in that shop, or I go somewhere else. So I'm not constrained. The product is not a product with absolute inelastic demand that you cannot do without. It is not fuel that a consumer must buy. If you have to drive your car, if you have to power your generator, if you have to power your factory, you need the product. If that is the case, then the context of the conversation will differ, but the context of that doesn't really apply. And your last guest made a very succinct, perfect explanation of the issue, because before you don't come to the end of the month, you don't come to the shelf and tell me this is the price that I should pay, I should sell my goods. You should also be kind enough to track what happened within the supply chain. It's just like somebody is going to Benin, and I'm the owner of the car, or I have interest in the car, in the mode of transportation. I said, look, you must get to Benin in 3 hours. And then the driver left Lagos and started going. I have to factor in the potholes on the road. I have to factor in the possibility that bandits are probably blocked the road and they're not allowing anybody to pass. I have to factor in that process. I can't wait for you in Benin and say, look, I gave it, ordinarily Benin should be 3 hours. Why did you make it for 3 hours?
You might even have to queue for fuel.
Absolutely. So it is why the FCCPC is doing a wonderful job with other regulators, but you cannot, you cannot create distortions by your action, because we feel while the idea is desirable that prices should come down, but we must also factor in the conversation of what happens when the individual imports his goods, what are other cost elements that we need to bring into that conversation. Until we deal with that, and we deal with it empirically, that's when we can now make conjectures about what the prices should be. We can make conjectures because we still run a free market economy. So we can make conjectures, but we cannot definitively say you must sell it at 1 naira, except we are moving to the realm of full-blown price regulation, which we are currently not in.
So you do, like for NECA, do you have a way which you monitor? Monitoring is very important for people not to also take advantage of customers. yes, we agree there are issues with FX, people import raw materials.
Absolutely.
There are challenges, for them to bring in. But how do you also, as an association, make sure that we, as Nigerians, are not exploited in any form?
Now, I'll give you two perspectives to that. One, our capacity to, within the context of our race index, we are not created to regulate.
Okay, yes.
We are not created to monitor, but we can advise, we can urge, because one of the things we do significantly is promote responsible enterprises. That look, you must operate responsibly, not only within the context of responsibilities to government, in context of compliance to rules and regulations, but also operate responsibly to your internal customers, which are your staff, and then your external customers, which are your clients. And again, the beauty of the free market is this, and we have antitrust, anti-competition laws, that when a product, when a segment is heading towards antitrust, it's heading towards a monopoly, then government can come down and with the big stick. If it is not a monopoly and there is no obvious gang up, that a group of people are ganging up to fix prices against the interests of the people, where the government can also come in, then free markets, the market should play absolute role. If I'm not satisfied, if you're selling at A naira, then if I'm not satisfied, I go buy where I can get it for X naira. Something happened somewhere in Kwara State or your state, I can't remember, where a woman wanted to sell gari for a particular amount, and many other women selling gari in the market, they all came and told her and said, look, you can't sell at this price because your price is too low. This is the price we want you to sell. And the market erupted. The people, the individuals, the people erupted, look, why can't you stop her from selling at this price? That is the beauty of free market. You can go anywhere and buy anywhere you want to buy. So answering the question definitively, I think we should allow the free market to operate, while government play the critical role of creating an environment, a conducive environment for businesses to thrive, and then regulate using fiscal and monetary policies to make sure that there's no exploitation, there's no victimization, and there's no price gouging, as you mentioned earlier.
So back to what government needs to do now to be able to address the root cause of the issues. Now, let's try to stay on them. We already have reforms that the fallout is something that everyone is trying to manage. So what more definitively from the Ministry of Trade and Investment, what sort of conversation are they supposed to be having with private sector players like you that are in the market to understand where the shoe really pinches?
Thank you very much for that question. While we commend some agencies, without missing words, we commend the work that PEBEC is doing, Dr. Jumoke Odwole. We commend the work that some other agencies and presidential committees are doing. Tawo Idele's committee is also doing a yeoman's job. And with the gargantuan kind of challenge that we have, I think the Ministry of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy is also playing its part. But the conversation we should be having is this, which is quite interesting. And for us, it's not rocket science. They are basic conversations. Now, what does it take to produce? Right? Then what are the constraints, the bottleneck that you face from the point of production to getting the products to the market? What are the cost elements? What are the bottlenecks? It will also surprise you that some regulators, are also part of the bottlenecks. Because they create an environment that makes it practically impossible for you to comply. We've seen regulators where a business, passes the compliance requirement of an agency, one regulator, and then another regulator comes and says, look, that's your compliance level or that certificate you've gotten, it doesn't apply to us. So there are already inherent contradictions within the system itself. So the conversation will be, look, what are the bottlenecks that actually causes these products, the price to escalate to this point? And then you start looking at, okay, I can look at the interest rate. I borrowed $1 million when interest rate was 10%.
10%.
Then by the time I import the goods, interest rate was 15%. Do you expect me to sell at the same rate now that interest rate is higher? Then you look at energy cost. You look at clearing cost. You look at the cost, wages and salaries. You have to build in all those costs before you arrive at what exactly should be the likely price. The likely price, not the price. Because we run a market economy and the consumer should have the freedom to buy wherever he wants to buy. Those are the conversations that we should have. What are the constraints? What are the bottlenecks to trade? What are the things that are hindering these products from being sold at a price that is conducive for the individual? Now, for the private sector, it's quite delicate. Because when you produce, you have to sell. Most products carry expiry dates. So when the price of those products are way beyond what the consumer can buy, it's a double-edged sword for the private sector, for an average producer, an average manufacturer. Because when you have produced, you have to sell, you have to pay your loan. Now, because of circumstances beyond your control, you don't have sufficient off-takers to buy the product. So you risk losing the product to the context of expiry, or you risk selling the product in a lesser price that will also compromise your ability to pay back your loan or to meet your expenses. And the greater evil is this. Others might say it doesn't matter. It's just product buying and selling. But when the business remains unsustainable for quite a while, the business owner will take some very, very difficult decisions. And to the regulator, who has slammed penalties, he doesn't see the long-term consequences of job losses. Because jobs to be lost, we feed in our brothers and sisters that will lose their job, we feed them back into the unemployment circle. We create more potential for insecurity. But the regulators will think he has done his job and has done it successfully. But meanwhile, we have contributed invariably, we have conspired to create more socioeconomic challenges for all of us to deal with. So I think it's an holistic conversation that we should have. We have urged, and we also urge now, that it's necessary for the Ministry of Finance to actually call a regulatory or regulators town hall meeting with organized businesses. Let's share our pain. Let's share our concern. Let's share policy objective, policy recommendations that we think should drive how regulators regulate. Regulators for us, or regulation, or in the drive for compliance, regulators must be fair, they must be transparent, and they must do it in such a way that it doesn't distort the stability that we are currently striving to get. Because you can slam penalties. Come on, you can slam 1 billion naira penalties as we are currently seeing. You can slam millions of penalties as we are currently seeing. But when a business pays that, it becomes part of the cost of production or part of the cost of operations. And that cost, it doesn't fly in the air. It goes back to the consumer because they have to pay. The business have to recover one way or the other. So we must have this holistic conversation in a friendly environment that is devoid of victimization, that is devoid of harassment, and that is devoid of threat. Because significantly, that's what we find: regulators threatening, regulators harassing, regulators doing all sorts of things, which is also, the president is in China. I was in China yesterday or Japan.
Yes, today in China.
And the listings, they watch what is happening. So as the president is in China, canvassing for investments, although the Chinese or Japanese, they are wiser now, they wait for our investment somewhere. As he's canvassing for investment, and we have regulators, some regulators, also contradicting the president's message that foreigners should come to Nigeria and invest. There's no worse contradiction you can find anywhere.
The reforms are key, and we've stayed on this for so long.
Absolutely,
DG, you agree with me? We've been following up even before subsidy removal.
Exactly.
And finally, it's been removed, and we see. So before I go there to that reforms, are you trying to, our members, of course, and of course members of the organized private sector, you're supposed to reach out to the FCCPC, other regulators, to sit down on a round table and talk about all of these issues and make your position known. Are you doing anything like that?
Absolutely. We've had a meeting last week with the presidential committee, chairman of the presidential committee on fiscal policy and tax reforms. We've written to PEBEC. We'll be reaching out to definitely reaching out to the Minister of Finance and Minister of the Economy this week. Fortunately, we saw a letter from PEBEC this morning. I think it came on Friday for a stakeholders meeting that was held last week. The letter came after the meeting has been held. We're also reaching out to the Vice Chairman of FCCPC. The private sector is open. We're open to engage because we are one of the biggest stakeholders in this economy. And our commitment to driving this economy and following through with the reforms is absolute. So we need them to work with us. We need them to partner with us to resolve all these issues because they are the heart of our national development.
I know. Government will definitely listen. The private sector, you do a lot running this economy. Job creations and all of that.
Absolutely.
Let's look at these reforms again. The fallout, energy prices, and look at what is happening to PMS. On a lighter note, we're talking about what NNPC is now admitting to the fact that they are owing some monies, and now this might affect supply. I think after the issues of thunderstorm and all of that, they're coming up to own up to some of these issues. But mine is just the ripple effect of this on the little positive we saw in inflation and all of that. Are you sure we're not just going to, it's not going to override this as we move towards the end of the year?
The contradictions. And one of the key things we have to deal with is the contradictions.
Yeah, it is.
Why exactly do we find ourselves here? The issue of the Dangote refinery has been overflogged. Even if some people have reservations about it, but the fact is that the refinery is here. It can save us. Some of our blushes. We have the Port Harcourt refinery. Why can't we just make it work? It can save us a lot of blushes. You can imagine the quantum of foreign exchange that will save if we have surplus in Nigeria. If Dangote refinery is made to work. I say if it's made to work. Not that it doesn't want to work, but if it's made to work. If the Port Harcourt refinery is made to work. Imagine the quantum of forex will save. And if Dangote is exporting, imagine the reduced pressure that we're going to have on forex. So why it's not working is it beats one's imagination. It's like the more you see, or the more you look, the less you see what is happening in the oil and gas industry.
And how it affects the business. The businesses is what really affects me. And what, moving forward, are we likely to continue like this towards the end of the year? We thought that we had gotten to that point where that curve had started to pick up.
Absolutely. We thought as much also. I think the president should just wield the big stick. The people distorting the economy, they are not spirits, for God's sake. They might be cabals, but they are not spirits. And they can't be too powerful for the sovereign to raise his hand to say, I'm helpless dealing with it. So the buck still rests on the table of the president, rests on the table of those, his advisors. That look, at the point, you just have to close your eyes and weigh the big stick in the interest of the nation.
Because for me, almost finally, I was thinking at that point that we talked about again, DG, that, maybe CBN will now rethink the hiking of NPR, the next meeting. But I don't think this is enough for them to take that decision.
Well, nothing is impossible, really. We saw the president 2 days ago reduce the price of energy costs for universities and hospitals, which is
50%.
Beautiful. A wonderful, a statesmanship kind of action. I also hope the president will extend that to the real sector. But those that will drive the economy out of the woods as we currently have it. The real sector also needs some level of bailout. I don't want to call it bailout, but some level of concession within the cost of the price of energy, which is at the heart of any industrialization that you find anywhere. So we hope the president will take a second look at it. Universities, absolutely necessary. The hospitals, absolutely necessary. In fact, if it's possible, to further reduce for the hospitals, because look, in most other countries, healthcare is key to the survival of the nation, to survival of the workers, to everybody. So if the president can also take a critical look at the real sector and also give some level of concession. We have made representation. In fact, for the private sector to agree to the 62,000 national minimum wage, then part of our preconditions was that government must take a second look at the Band A, because most private sector businesses fall within Band A. And part of our preconditions was that the government should take a second look, not only a second look, a critical look at the cost of energy. But unfortunately, that has not been addressed. So we hope the president will also be magnanimous enough to consider the private sector in this instance.
Amos, thank you so much for your time. DG, it's always good to have you, that energy, you know, how it has to do with not just the economy. But, well, we have to do what we have to do. Thank you so much, DG Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Thank you and do have a great week.
Thank you for having us.
All right, then.